Shalom, 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 family. All power and glory to the Father Yahweh. Through the throne of King David, Royal House, salute you once again. This is another message of daily edification. I'm your King and Shepherd. We will be edifying today out of the, I always keep my promises, y'all. See this right here? We're going to be coming out of this. Now, if you don't have the book, don't worry about it. I would urge you to get it. But, I'm going to read verbatim out of this book, right? We're going to be studying this for a minute, so just prepare yourself, all right? Let me see how many chapters it's got. 20, 27 chapters, right? So I want y'all to be well edified with this. And I do believe you're going to thoroughly enjoy. Well, I ain't going to say you'll enjoy all of it. But I do believe that you will be thoroughly edified. And this is going to stretch your mind like you wouldn't believe. All right? We ain't this slow. You know? This just imagine this is one of them one of those remember when you were little, your mama made you a bowl of soup. She fed it to you real slow, you know. She had that spoon, especially if your mama had some big ass lips. She was like, them big ass soup cooling lips. You know, hopefully her breath wasn't stinking a little bit and you'd be like trying to fight that shit off, getting to that soup. Well, you know, I got a breath mint, y'all. I'm going to blow this soup off for you and we're going to eat it slow. All right. So this is, and so y'all don't think I'm bullshitting. All right. I want y'all first to go to 1 Chronicles chapter 29. We got to make it official. All right. 29 verse 29. And it says, now the acts of David, the king, first and last. Y'all hear that? First and last, behold, they are written in the book of Samuel the seer and in the book of Nathan the prophet and in the book of Gad the seer. Verse 30, with all his reign and his might and the times that went over him and over Israel and over all the kingdoms of the countries. Look at verse 30. It says, these accounts include the mighty deeds of his reign and everything that happened to him and to Israel and to all the surrounding kingdoms. So this is the complete book. This is the complete book of King David. Also Samuel the seer and Gad the seer. Basically, this book is going to expose David's dirty draws, right? Skid marks and all right? So prepare yourselves, all right? Prepare your minds and hearts to receive the word. Now, I'm just going to read it to you storybook style, if you don't mind. We're going to start off, all right, in this very first chapter of the book of Nathan the prophet, all right? Starting at verse 1. There was a time when the word of the Lord came unto King Saul in a dream by night, saying, thus saith the Lord thy power, who created heaven and earth, and from the stones of the ground made bones and ribs, and set bones in the body of flesh, to give structure to the man. And it hath pleased me to give place to the ribs for a cage of covering around the container of life. Verse 2. I have not made man all that he is, and I will reveal to him secret things if he will hearken to my words. Now behold, if a man shall refuse to hearken to me, then I shall show him very little and will not and he will not understand simple things. This implies to these simple ass niggas out here that don't understand nothing. When you refuse the Most High's leadership, he gonna make sure you understand very little. Verse 4. Now hear this, flesh of man. I have placed limits upon you, whereas you cannot contain life. He made people dumb purposely. You've seen it yourself. You've seen it in your families, right? You've seen it with these camps. Dumb as fuck, right? Well, now you know why. He said, I have put limits upon you, whereas you cannot contain life. I have loved you and have given you lungs to receive my breath that you might have life in you. Wherefore, then, do you think it good to corrupt your soul and those around you? Verse 7. For you were no living soul and would not have been, had I not breathed of my own breath through your nostrils, and into the gift of love that it hath pleased me to give you, which is your lungs. So, after when Yahweh Shai was, aka Adam, was made, the Most High himself breathed breathed the breath of life into Yahweh Shai's lungs, which is the understanding. So therefore, every seed that comes through Yahweh Shai, aka Adam, has that potential, all right, to be knowledgeable in what the Most High really means when he does something. Verse 8. Your lungs were made precious in substance and are not little in value. Have I given you every herb bearing seed that you might transform your precious containers of life into desperate filters of death? Yea, saith the Lord, I have truly given you, listen good, y'all, I have truly given you every herb bearing seed which is upon the face of all the earth. I have given it to you for meat. So all the herbs, he gave it to you for meat. Means it's supposed to be eaten, okay? And yea, saith the Lord, I have given you every tree in which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed to you. I gave it for meat. Verse 12. Take notice. Indeed, I have surely given you these things because I have loved you. But as to their function and purpose, I tell you nay. For they have verily been misused and abused to an evil purpose. That's to you weed smokers, right? I'm going to read it again so you don't think I'm bullshitting. Verse 12. Take notice. Indeed, I have surely given you these things because I have loved you. But as to their function and purpose, I tell you no. For they have verily been misused and abused to an evil purpose. Getting high. That's the evil purpose. Do y'all remember when I first started this? I said, look, I know y'all doing that shit out there. You better get that shit done. I hadn't read this book yet. It was just in me to tell you that. All right. Look at verse 14. Is a man in his right mind that runneth to his neighbors, all right, and saith, come, let us make to ourselves tubes of herb and pipes of trees, that we might mock the Creator and play with death and vex the very breath of life that is within us. So when you a weed head, you doing all this damn smoking weed, guess what? You're vexing and you're mocking your Creator. Yeah, we taking the gloves off today, all right? We taking the gloves off. All right? Y'all gonna get socked all in the mouth because it's time, because the time of us to leave is at hand. So all of you niggas and niggettes out there still fucking up. Look, this is the word. Check it out. I'm gonna read it again. Is a man in his right mind that runneth to his neighbors and saith, come, let us make to ourselves tubes of herb. Right? And pipes of trees, that we might mock the Creator and play with death and vex the very breath of life that is within us. Woe unto every soul of man that continuously pisseth upon the loving gifts of the power. He gave us these herbs and roots and everything to be consumed either by drinking them or eating them, not to smoke them and get high. They made a recreational drug out of what the Most High gave for healing. All right? Now, who do you know that does that? Well, niggas do it all over now. White boys, everybody. But who's mainly known for that? Yeah, man. Benjamin. All right. That's what they do, y'all. Benjamin, and look, this not to get on my Benjamites in the body, but come on, man. Y'all know. Y'all already know. Buffalo Soldier. Bob Marley was a fucking Japhite posing as a Benjamite. His mama was Benjamin. Daddy was a fucking funky ass white man. All right. Now, what was Saul? He was Benjamin. All right. Keep that in mind. Now, we're going to skip on over to chapter 2. And it came to pass in the morning when Saul had awoken from sleep that he remembered the word of the Lord which came to him in a dream. Therefore Saul made a proclamation throughout the land to put away all occasion of practicing the use of the herb for familiar spirit purposes of divination, and decreed a law that witches, wizards, mediums, and all those that have familiar spirits should die. So why did he do that? Because weed and all that was being used, all right, to get you in the mindset to receive familiar spirits and wickedness. All right. Verse 3. So Saul enforced the law that said, thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. Howbeit Saul took not the matter to heart, and in process of time Saul transgressed against the word of the power and obeyed not the voice of the Lord. And it came to pass in those days when Saul, listen here, when Saul smoked the herb of familiar spirits, that Saul slew himself. What I tell y'all? Look, I ain't making this shit up. Get the book. Verse 5, chapter 2, verse 5. So at the appointed time, the elders of Israel anointed David their king. So when Saul smoked the herb, he slew himself. Just like that. Now, Scripture says, to him who knoweth to do good and doeth it not, to him it is sin. Now, all of y'all out there still doing that shit, telling you, killing yourself. All right? Killing yourself. Get off that shit. Right? Verse 6. So at the appointed time, the elders of Israel anointed David their king. See, Saul was fucking up. That's what made him disobedient, among many other things that disqualified him from the throne. Number one, the kings come from Judah, not Benjamin. Verse 6, now behold, David had a heart of power, and the Lord loved him and blessed him. But David had a man killed to conceal the act of adultery from the people. For David was afraid lest the people of his own kingdom would say, our king has been conquered and overthrown and defeated by unlawful desire. When the heart of David became more concerned of his image than a man's life, it displeased the Lord. So this is what got David in trouble. When the heart of David became more concerned of his image than a man's life, it displeased the Lord. Verse 9. So the Lord sent Nathan unto David with the word of the power to compel David to confess his sin. Behold, is it not written in the book of Samuel the seer? All right, y'all with me? Let's go to chapter 3. Now behold, the daughter of Eliam was fair and well favored, and of all those that see after the flesh and judge by sight, not many men had not a desire in the heart to wed her. Therefore Eliam guarded his daughter well, and hastened not to give her to any man. For many men lusted after his daughter. But Eliam prayed to the Lord for a covering of choice concerning his daughter. And Eliam said, O Lord, I beseech thee, let not your daughter, in which ye have blessed me to bring up in your ways, fall prey to these hungry, wicked devourers of flesh. for all men seek to have her. I pray thee, O Lord, that the man you will send to marry my daughter, to marry our daughter, Salah, will not debase her to bring her down, but will exalt her, even unto the stature of a queen. Moreover, a queen of the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. Verse 5. And as Eliam was praying there walked up to him from afar an Hittite, and said to Eliam, most people pray to the Lord quietly, but you shout as loud, for I heard you praying all the way across the river. Now behold, surely the Lord thy power hath heard thy prayer also, and I reckon that the Lord hath given you the request that it might silence you. For in praying that loud, you shall shake the heavens if you do not lose your voice first. So this Hittite was telling Eliam, man, you were praying so loud, you're going to lose your voice. But your prayers have been answered. Look at verse 7. If it be pleasing in your sight, I will take your daughter's hand in marriage, and I myself shall honor the loud prayers of her father, and I will treat her like the queen of Israel. Verse 8. Now Eliam was pleased with the words of the Hittite, and Eliam asked him his name, and the Hittite said, my name is Uriah. And Eliam said, my daughter I shall give you, and her name is Bathsheba. So this book goes into the account of how Uriah and Bathsheba got together before David had Uriah killed. Chapter 4. Now the acts of David, the king of Israel, Uriah the Hittite, and Bathsheba, the wife of them both, whoso readeth, let him understand. Are they not written in the book of Samuel the seer? But now learn of their ways, because the seed of David was in Bathsheba. The fear of Uriah was in David. I'll read that again. But now learn of their ways, because the seed of David was in Bathsheba. The fear of Uriah was in David. When Eliam had prayed the loud prayer for his daughter, Uriah was hidden in the bushes. And when Uriah had sought an opportunity to gain favor with Eliam, he came out and he made himself revealed unto Eliam. Wherefore Uriah obtained favor of the Lord, and the Lord called him Uriah, that is to say, when darkness is brought to light, the hidden things shall be revealed. Verse 5. Therefore the Lord moved through Uriah and prompted him to seize the moment, step up, come out, and reveal himself, that he might inherit the daughter of Eliam for a wife as a blessing. This is chapter 5 now. So Nathan came to David in the name of the Lord and spoke unto him a prophetic utterance by way of the spirit of the power. And by the way of the Spirit spake Nathan unto David. And Nathan spake not unto David on that day, save by the way of the Spirit. I'll read that again. So Nathan came to David in the name of the Lord and spoke unto him in a prophetic utterance by the way of the Spirit of the power. So he didn't talk to David straight. He told him, just to the right, to where it was kind of like maybe in a parable sense, where David didn't really get that he was involved in what he was telling his ass, right? And by the way of the Spirit spake Nathan unto David. And Nathan spake not unto David on that day, save by the way of the Spirit. And Nathan said unto David, the child that is born unto thee by Bathsheba shall surely die. Now, that's what he told David. Verse 4. David therefore cried unto power, and the Lord spake to David to comfort him. And the Lord said, a sick child indeed works hard to endure to the end, but when it is the Sabbath day, should the child not find rest? All right. And David perceived from the word of the power that the child would die on the Sabbath day. Howbeit, in this David found himself comforted. Now at the death of the child, David was grieved that he had sinned against the Lord, and although Uriah was dead, even so Uriah lives on. And David had therefore determined not to come near Bathsheba. For after the death of the child of David, David reckoned the beauty of Bathsheba to be sin in itself, and he blamed the beauty of Bathsheba for his own transgression. So she was so bad, nobody could resist her, even the king. And when he saw her, especially out there washing up butt naked, it was a wrap after that. So he counted her beauty as sin, and he tried to get away from her. He tried to resist. All right. Verse 7. Now Bathsheba mourned much for the innocent child who fell prey to the abomination of fornication and the wages thereof. Nevertheless, David shunned her as if she was a plague, and the king would not allow her to come in to be with him or even see him. For David was fervent in praying with himself, and the king would jot down his prayers and recite them. And as David would read the prayers he had written, the spirit of power would then inspire David to write more, until soon the hand of David would be worthless and useless, but the words written would be useful and worth much. He wrote till his hands was messed up. Okay. Now David truly had loved Bathsheba. Nevertheless, because of the death of the child, the heart of David was as hard towards her as a stone. But the Lord knew that this was because David feared to be with Bathsheba, lest more of their children would die. And David had sworn to himself not to be with Bathsheba. But this thing was not easy for him. And as King David endeavored to use the company of other women to keep him from going to Bathsheba, so he took to himself one wife after another. But his desire for Bathsheba grew stronger. Now David had to come to find that the only thing that was able to keep him from going to Bathsheba, his true love, was remembering the worst day of his life, thinking about the day the Lord sent Nathan the prophet to say, the child shall die. For the day the child died was not as bad in measure as the day David received the terrible news from the prophet, because that day the child had died, the Lord had already comforted David concerning it. But the day Nathan came to David, Nathan declared unto King David of some wicked evil thing a man did. And David was very upset in hearing the evil report of the wicked man. And David said, I will go and kill this wicked man myself. And David reached and took hold of his bow and his quiver of 7 arrows to go and kill the man. And David said unto Nathan, show me where this man is, and I will show thee the judgment that is reserved for evildoers. And I will show this man the wrath of power. And Nathan said unto David, you are that man. And the last words of Nathan to David that day were that the child that is born unto thee shall surely die. And when David heard the word of the Lord, that day he shivered exceedingly, for a great trembling had fallen upon him, and so much that even his quiver did quiver. Said David nuts was shaking. All right. And when David was done shaking, he placed his bow down in the corner. Then as he was settling down the quiver, he noticed the appearance of an arrow missing. So David dumped the arrows out and counted them, and behold, the arrows were all there, but none were broken. But one was broken. David then understood that the broken arrow signified the death of the child, and he said, as arrows are in the hand of a mighty man, so are the children of the youth, and happy is the man hath his quiver full of them. That's where that scripture came from. Chapter 6. And David desired Bathsheba, but feared to be with her, lest the Lord would be angry with him, for he had sinned against the Lord with Bathsheba. So David pursued having children with other women, that his quiver might be full of arrows, and that he might be happy. But he would not come near Bathsheba. Verse 3. Now behold, Eliam, the father of Bathsheba, had prayed with a loud voice for his daughter, that the man Bathsheba would marry would exalt her to the stature of a queen of Israel. That's what he prayed, right? We'll look at verse 4. Wherefore, it was ultimately the will of the power for Bathsheba to be with David. And because it was intimately within the way of Yahweh for Bathsheba and David to be fruitful and multiply, they begat upon the death of their firstborn, and Bathsheba had hoped to call the child Amiel, for she said, Yahweh have heard the prayers of my father, and Yahweh have given me another son in the stead of Shumas, who is no more. Now behold, Yahweh was hearkening unto the prayers of the father of Bathsheba, and the child was a gift of comfort from Yahweh unto Bathsheba, and this was the way that Yahweh has sent comfort unto Bathsheba to carry her through the sorrow she felt from the swift death of her firstborn. So the thing was from Yahweh, but David knew it not. And so David proceeded to cast her away from her own child. And he gave the child unto his brother for his brother to raise him, and he had it arranged in such a way that Bathsheba was not going to be able to see her own child. And the Lord was long suffering for the sake of the ignorance of David. So the Most High blessed him with a child that didn't die. David gave him away and didn't allow Bathsheba to see the child. All right. Verse 5. And it was 1 year after the child of David and Bathsheba had died that another child of David was born by another woman. Now this child David thought to use for a reminder to never touch Bathsheba again. And David called the name of his son Nathan, after the name of the prophet who knew all things that David and Bathsheba had ever done, and said that their only child together should surely die. Verse 8. For David thought that for the rest of his life he would have a constant reminder to refrain from Bathsheba, because every time he would speak to his son and would say Nathan, and whenever he said Nathan, he will remember the day Nathan the prophet foretold the death of the child Bathsheba conceived in adultery with David, which led to the murder of Uriah by the hand of David. Howbeit David could not comprehend that the power could and would use the hand that had written a letter that had an innocent man killed. See, all this was in the Most High's plan. David just didn't know it. The father didn't let David know all this was designed. Uriah could never elevate Bathsheba to being the level of a queen in Israel. But David could. So it was Uriah's job, basically, to bring her to David, and then David took her. And the Most High used Uriah, and then it was the Most High that used David to kill Uriah and take his wife. That's something, ain't it? Man. This is verse 10. That Yahweh should use that same hand to write letters that would diagnose every sick, diseased, ill creature healed. And without much thought about it, David spent most of his time writing words down, and some of them he would give to certain people, whoever that he thought would appreciate his writings as inspiration from the Lord of living spirits. And David wrote often, and he wrote poems for Bathsheba, and he wrote riddles for Gad, and he wrote songs for Nathan, and he wrote stories for Zadok. And one day, when he had sent for Bathsheba to be fetched and brought unto him, hoping to read to her from the poems he had written for her, which were from his heart, and it was important to him that she hear the poems and understand them, howbeit Bathsheba knew not the measure of importance the thing was for David, and she knew not the abundance of labor he had spent on her poems more than the others. For the others he did not think much about her, think about, but her poems were special to him, and he thought hard as he wrote them, and it was not easy for him to express his feelings toward her in writings. Wherefore the easiest way for David to write right unto Bathsheba was in poems. Now as Bathsheba drew nigh unto the river where David was waiting for her, she yelled at him, saying, I want to see our son. And David said, Shemiah is with his uncle, and I told my brother that he can keep him. And so he hath taken the name of my brother, and he is now raising him as his own. But I know how you must feel, and I am hoping that these poems that I have written can bring you comfort. And Bathsheba snatched the poems out of his hands and tore them in pieces and tossed them into the river. All right? She tossed them into the river and said, Take me to see our child, and I will bring him home with me. Why should your brother raise him? Shemiah is our child. He is not his child. And this thing frustrated David, because he knew not that all of his poems he had written were lost forever. And being mad at Bathsheba for tearing up his poems that he had written for her, he looked her in the eyes with a serious look and said, Our only child together died in the same week that he was born. The boy that you speak of is with my brother and is being raised as his own child. And if you say that he is our child again, then I shall send you to your first husband. Now, repeat after me, my only child is dead. Now Bathsheba did not want to say that, but being in fear of David, she said it. And he was forced to say it many times, thousands of times. And she said it so much that she began to believe it. Now, the physically abusive things that David did unto Bathsheba are not mentioned here. But here you have been given some of the verbal abuse that Bathsheba endured. And other days were of the same violent nature between David and Bathsheba. We're going to cut it off right there, family. When we come back, we will pick up in verse 11. But y'all go ahead and soak that in, all right? All praises to the Father of lights for this edification. See y'all on the next go round. KD out. Shalom.